Today we're gonna do something a little different. We're gonna talk about the new Demons and Wizards album. Just for a little background, I fucking love Blind Guardian and Iced Earth in like a completely unhealthy, obsessive way. I think everyone agrees that the first Demons and Wizards album was a fucking like absolute timeless masterpiece. I think the second one is a little more controversial, I think. So, John, what did you think of 3?
Okay, so let me just start out by saying that, so you've given your little preamble. I also am a tremendously huge Blind Guardian and Iced Earth fan, and I was even just listening to the Alive in Athens DVD in my backyard the other day, and was just thinking, like, Jon Schaffer has written some of the best heavy metal songs in like the history of metal music.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, up there with anything Metallica or Iron Maiden has ever done.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Absolutely.
And I think a big part of it was there was this like, it was like very simple in some ways, but very catchy in others. And then I think the third thing that I think about is there was an audacity to it. Like
what do you mean by audacity?
Yeah, so let me explain. So like when you listen to like Cast in Stone, it's like so fucking fast, and the rhythm guitar is like the sweeping tapping, like the 8-finger tapping equivalent of just like straight like like it's the most technical and impressive like chug picking in that style of rhythm guitar. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what was so cool about it.
Yeah, he's definitely the Yngwie Malmsteen of just, you know, like rhythm.
Yeah.
That you know, the first 5 or 6 albums that was really their, like, I don't want to say gimmick, but like that was their stylistic sort of claim to, you know, identity.
Right.
So it was a combination of just really, really amazing rhythm parts, really sort of straightforward and very simple and simplistic songwriting, and Matt Barlow's just emotionally raw performances. Like, I think that's sort of a very big key to Iced Earth is just how devastating and just beautiful Matt Barlow was able to just deliver, you know, his performances. I think without him, I mean, Stu Block is maybe a little bit better of a singer technically, but just he still lacks that visceral, just emotional punch that Matt Barlow was always able to bring.
Well, and I think, you know, you brought up the Metallica comparison, and I think that's the other thing about early Iced Earth is the singing has that raspy percussive quality.
Yes.
That, you know, a lot of Metallica has. So it kind of walked that line between like power metal and thrash metal. I remember even when I first discovered Iced Earth, I mean, I didn't even discover it. I had a friend in high school who was like, it was like when I was brand new into metal, he was like, you need to check out this band Iced Earth. And he called them power metal. And I went and listened to it, and I was like, okay, this isn't like Hammerfall. This isn't like,
right.
You know, Halloween or something. Mm. And he and I were talking about it after, and we were both kind of having this like, what even is it? What do you even call it? You know? And so we, you know, is it power thrash? Is it, you know, just like extreme traditional metal, you know? But okay, so all this aside, this is all for me to say that I love Iced Earth, and I love the things that Jon Schaffer does. Blind Guardian is on a completely different level for me. Not comparing the two like objective.
Right.
Just like I am, I have wept at Blind Guardian songs.
Oh yeah.
I have.
Me
It is
too.
amazing that I'm here today to do this at the reckless driving that I am responsible for while listening just to And Then There Was Silence.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, don't even get me started about driving to And Then There Was Silence.
Right.
And having to rewind the part. I can't think of what part, but like, yeah.
Yeah. So, having said that, sorry, Demons and Wizards. Yeah. So the first album I think is really good. I'm actually in the camp that I think the second album is like a complete masterpiece.
Really?
When I even first heard, I think from you, like say that there's any debate about the quality of the second album, like that.
Okay.
Is like if I went to go see Demons and Wizards and they played just the second album in its entirety, I'd be so satisfied. I mean, every song on that record is very pleasing to me, especially the bonus tracks. The bonus tracks are fucking great. Spatial Architects and Lunar Lament.
I actually don't think I've heard either of those songs.
Oh, they're phenomenal. God
okay.
Damn. Yeah. Okay. So check those out. Now this third one, and I should say no. You know what? I don't need to give any more preamble. I was disappointed by this record. I'll just go ahead and say it.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I will give my synopsis then. I fucking love this album. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. The first time I was a little neutral on it, but upon repeated listenings, I want to say it's the best Jon Schaffer album definitely since Horror Show, maybe since Something Wicked This Way Comes. I want to say that it's the best Hansi album since maybe A Twist in the Myth.
Okay. I have so many questions.
Okay.
Okay. Interesting. What was wrong with At the Edge of Time and Red Mirror? But go on.
Okay. I mean, are those actual questions you're asking right now?
I don't know if we have to talk about that on video, but
okay.
Like,
so this is kind of where I feel like my opinion is maybe differs from what most people think. To me, those albums were just kind of uninspired. I think there's phenomenal material on them. I think that some of the songs are like the best of their career. I think that I guess there's 2 ballads on At the Edge of Time, and both of them are like the best songs they've ever written. And then Beyond the Red Mirror, I think the production was not phenomenal.
I agree with that.
I think, I don't know, that there's so much going on, and I think that very little of it is actually interesting. Like, I feel like when I listen to Beyond the Red Mirror, I just feel bombarded by riffs and melodies and ideas. And so, my first 5 or 10 times listening to it, I'm just thinking, okay, I'm not understanding what's going on. I need to I need to give this time. I need to really get what they're going for here. And, by the time I've listened to it 20 or 30 times, I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm just really not feeling any of this. Distant Memories is a good song. I mean, there's a couple good songs, but I want to say that the really good songs on that album are maybe on par with the mediocre songs from the previous 4 albums. Again, that's just me.
No.
A lot of people disagree about that.
I definitely think that there's a certain I don't know if unpolished is the word, but I do think that Red Mirror it has a lot going on, and some of it doesn't quite stick, but it still has, I think, some just amazing albums, and I still think or amazing songs rather.
Yeah.
And I still think that Blind Guardian they're so creative and interesting as a group, and I mean just even the fact that this I think there's something objective to say about Red Mirror, which is that they're, 30 or it was like something like 35 years into their career.
Something like that, yeah. I think
when they made that, and it's like
86.
you can, or let's just call it's like 30 or 35, whatever years in your career, and they were still stepping up their game. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I liked, that was one of my favorite qualities about that record, is just compared to other bands where you feel like they've checked out, or they're doing just like bad, like overtly bad stuff. I think at least Red Mirror was like, was at least, you can see they're progressing as a band in some ways. And I loved At the Edge of Time. I mean, that album changed my life. So.
Wait, which album?
At the Edge of Time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
but
that's so yeah. What did you find disappointing about 3?
Okay, yeah. So I want to try to make this I want to try to have some actual like academic, like a scholarly argument to what I'm saying here. So I think this album lacks that's what I was saying, the audacity of prior Schaffer work.
Okay.
I really think the vocal work on this album is quite good, but I also think it suffers from the same thing that you were talking about with Red Mirror, which is there's kind of a lot going on, and sometimes it doesn't feel like it has a center or a point of focus or something.
Sure.
But the quality of the vocal performances is actually, I think, really amazing. But as far as the music outside the vocals, I thought they lacked sort of the like intensity and the like I said, the audacity of like some other Iced Earth stuff, or even other Demons of Wizard stuff. I thought there was just a lot of just like chugging and just straight palm muted eighth notes and things like that. And I the one other thing I have to say is I can't stand the way they did the drums. They sound really fake.
I honestly, I didn't notice that. I'll have to listen for that next time I listen to it. I think I was actually thinking something similar to what you were just saying a second ago. I listened to Touched by the Crimson King a couple times this week, just to be able to compare and contrast the two. And Crimson King is a Jon Schaffer album, whereas 3 is definitely a Hansi album. I feel like the guitar work is a lot more interesting on Crimson King in terms of just the crazy riffing and that stuff. But yeah, and it's as you said, it's a lot more kind of held back and sort of more what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word.
Like subdued
streamlined.
Or
it's
okay.
Subdued and streamlined. Yeah. But the vocal melodies and the lyrics are among Hansi's best, in my opinion. It's like he has a certain magic about him. Like he can just put images into your head with a simple like 3 or 4 word phrase just repeated twice. I can't really put what he's doing that makes it so effective in academic terms. I just feel like there's a magic to what he creates with his voice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I feel like this album is really, he steals the show. He really like elevates it. And I sort of feel like Jon Schaffer as a songwriter can write really, really powerful material, provided he has the right vocalist to elevate it. And like we were talking earlier about Matt Barlow, and just, how he elevates the Iced Earth music with just his ability to deliver this raw, visceral performance. Mm-hmm. And that's really what Jon Schaffer needs. He needs a vocalist who can just, deliver this devastating performance. And, some of the Iced Earth vocalists are phenomenal, but just can't do it in that way. They're just not that vocalist. And I feel like Hansi is that vocalist about half the time, and this album, he's absolutely on point all the time in that particular regard. I mean, you take a song like, I don't know, like Reaping Stone from Something Wicked This Way Comes, and it's all Barlow. It's a phenomenal vocalist could do a vocal cover of it, and just nothing. It would just it would sound like nothing at all. And yeah, I feel like Hansi really he finds whatever it is, and he really brings it with these particular songs.
So this is interesting, because one of the things I've marveled at over the years actually is just how Demons and Wizards really is, or at least to me, very like equal parts. Jon Schaffer's signature thing and Hansi's signature thing, and it doesn't feel like they're blended. I mean this in a good way. It doesn't feel like they're like blended. It feels like they're like two things stacked on top of each other in a really nice way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think that Hansi has that. He's not the same type of singer as
not at all.
Matt Barlow, for example, but is, he does his own thing in a really amazing, remarkable way. And I think that's actually the cool thing about his work with Demons and Wizards, is that you would think sometimes, like, I don't know, like sometimes I thought, like, well, how would Matt Barlow, or just a different, less operatic, a little more sort of gritty, raw, grounded singer, like someone that would be in Iced Earth, how would they sing this particular Demons and Wizards song? And it doesn't feel like, if they did, like, it doesn't feel like, in the same way that you're saying you can't have just anybody do a cover of a song like Reaping Stone, I don't think you can just have any singer do a cover of Heaven Denies, or Crimson King.
I totally agree.
So what were some of your favorite moments from this record?
So I really like almost everything in Children of Cain, but I especially like the mandolin part, because I feel like that's a part where Hansi it just brings his sweetness, and that's one of those emotionally raw moments. I think there's nothing on this album that's as good as Fiddler on the Green, or Blood on My Hands, or Heaven Denies. But I think that Children of Cain is one of the moments where it gets really close. It's, like a 10-minute long kind of ballad. And man, it's one of Hansi's. I don't even really know what to say about it, other than just classic Hansi. I really like Dark Side of Her Majesty. I feel like that's kind of the almost the Blood on My Hands of this album. I like Wolves in Winter a lot more than I did when it was released as a single. definitely think there's a lot of filler. Like I remember when the Money and Jesus song came out.
Midas Disease.
Yeah, we were both kind of like, uh-oh, oh no. It's definitely the weakest song in this album.
Yeah.
I can listen to it in the flow of the entire album. There's maybe like 2 or 3 songs that I'm not really feeling.
Well, it's funny. I think Midas Disease is actually like perhaps the catchiest song. Like it's the only one that I listened to, maybe except for like Diabolic.
Okay.
Where I listened to it one time and was like, I like remembered the, I'm not coming for Jesus or whatever that is. Are you coming to beat me for real? And the chorus and all that. Like it's because it's the simplest song. I mean, it's basically an AC/DC song.
Yeah. Or like Accept.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so let me just say, I totally agree with you about Children of Cain. Children of Cain is like, I think it's actually the most Blind Guardian-y song.
Yeah, absolutely.
The mandolin part is that's a good observation. I mean, that really reminds me of something Blind Guardian would do. And I think that song, it still to me lacked the, just like a real moment that just made me go like, oh, whoa, like that a lot of Hansi / Blind Guardian / Ice Earth whatever stuff does. But I think that one was like dripping in depth and was very musically interesting for sure. And I'm glad that they put some 10-minute songs.
Oh yeah.
I'm somebody who I like it when songs get to take their time and whatever.
Sure. Yeah. God, I like Diabolic a lot more than I did when it was a single.
Yeah, I like that song.
I guess sort of that's the thing about this album, and which is true of all of Jon Schaffer's stuff, is that particularly after Ice Earth's maybe like 4th or 5th album or something, it's sort of less about individual songs, although there are some, phenomenal individual songs, but it's more about just the flow and the atmosphere of the album.
What album do you think started that with?
Dark Saga. So, I mean, like, I was just thinking about how if Dark Saga had been released in the social media age, and they had released, like, The Last Laugh or Violate or something like that, I would be like, what the fuck is this? This is, like, 2 minutes and 15 seconds or however the fuck long it is, and there's, like, no ideas. The riffs are just a note for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But you just kind of have to, again, it's that power that Matt Barlow brings and how it flows from song 1 to the end of the album.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I feel like this album can't really be expressed in singles.
Yeah.
It has a kind of a very desolate sort of wastelandy feel, which the first one did too. Does that make sense, or am I just like babbling?
No. Well, so I agree that there's an identity to a lot of these albums in their entirety. I don't know if I totally agree that, like, 'cause I think even if you had something like a Violate or a Dark Saga, or any of the songs off of those first 5 or 6 or whatever Ice Earth records, I think even if you would kind of say, okay, this song has a different identity in the context of the album than on its own as a single, I think you would still say, if you heard one of those songs as a single, you'd still say, oh, this is a great song. And
would you say that about Violate though?
Yeah, I mean, I love Violate, but
okay, fair enough.
But I mean, I think in some ways this goes into like the psychology of like what makes something like a good single.
Right.
Because by the same token, if you had, and then there was Silence as a single, you'd be like, you could very easily say, like, why are you making this single a 15-minute song or something?
That
like,
was the single, actually.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't. It wasn't like under the ice or anything like that. Or Battlefield. No. I thought it was Battlefield. No. Okay.
No, it was definitely. And then there was Silence. That was the first song they released off that album. I think that was around the time when bands started releasing, their singles online.
Okay. Well, I could be. Then maybe I'm wrong in what I'm saying. But anyhow, so I agree with but in short, like I agree with what you're saying in terms of like you have to look at a song, or you can look at a song in the context as the song itself, and then like where it fits into the identity of an album.
Yeah.
I think, but I think that the singles that they released for this record feel like singles. Like Diabolic feels like a single. I mean, it has that sort of hook, the hooky kind of melody in the verse. It has a chorus. It has a main riff. Midas Disease is clear, is like I said, is like very, very kind of like straightforward. So I can see why that would be a single. And I kind of feel the same way about Wolves in Winter. And I feel like the songs actually that didn't get released on this album as singles are the ones that have more going on musically.
Right, but I mean, like if you look at it, you say Midas Disease is obviously works well as a single, but that was the same song that made like us and pretty much everyone I know who heard it go like, I don't know, this is
yeah, okay, but this is what I was saying is that there's a difference between what I'm saying is like there's something to say it's like functionally a single, and then there's something else to say it is a great song. Like Violate or Last Laugh or those songs, like you might say they're not functionally good singles, but I still think they're amazing songs. And so that's why I was saying is there's something to like I think about this crap a lot. Like what makes something a good first song on an album? What makes something a great last song on an album? There's just something to that where if you put okay, here's another way to look at it. Violate is a great whatever it is, like second or third song. It would make no sense as a last song. Right?
That is absolutely, no, you're not wrong.
So there's something to this. It's very, and I think this is interesting, sort of the, like, I don't know, the psychology or the structuring or whatever.
Right.
Of where songs fit into some greater piece of art or some greater project or creation.
Well, if you're talking about what makes a good single and you're saying it's just, okay, there's, an obvious main riff, an obvious vocal hook, but you follow that formula. If you're so religious about that formula that it makes you choose a song that's going to turn everyone off and make them worried that the album is going to be a horrific disappointment, maybe that's not a good criteria for choosing singles. I mean,
that's just a bad song. It shouldn't be on the album, period. Like, if that's, you know what I mean? If that's what you're talking about, I think.
Yeah, whereas if you had chosen like, Timeless Fear, I guess that might be a really bad song for a single because it's like, 6 or 7 minutes long or however long it is. But if that had been the single, I would have been intrigued. I would have been like, whoa, this, okay, I can,
yeah,
I can be pumped about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they should have done Invincible as the second single because it has I love the chorus in that song.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, but I get why they would I get why someone would release Midas Disease as a single, like I said, functionally or whatever.
Yeah. I feel like if that's sort of the formula and it's making you choose, well, again, like you said, that song probably shouldn't have even been on the album to begin with. But if it's if the formula for what makes a good single is causing you to choose the worst song on the album, maybe you shouldn't be quite so strict about following that formula.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying anybody should be strict about following any formula.
Well, yeah, of course.
form. I think that like this just exists in the ether, and it's not something that has to be adhered to. But I think it's like somewhat just like there's just something to. Okay, I can't believe I'm about to make this dumb analogy, but it's like saying, okay, you know, you can say that these pants fit, but they're like orange with like different colored polka dots, like. You know what I mean? Like you can objectively say like the pants fit, they're not falling off. Like that's just like a law of nature. But they still don't go with that shirt or something.
Yeah, I can see that. So what about you? What were your favorite moments on the album, if you had any? Like, well, okay. How on a scale of like 1 to 10, where would you put this album? Because I'm trying to gauge how disappointed you were. Like if it's
well, I
give it a 7.5.
So I was pretty disappointed.
Okay.
I think
but like.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just to say I want a sense of if you would give it like a 7.75 and you were just disappointed because you wanted it to be a 10, or if you gave it like a 2 and you're like, no, I was fucking disappointed.
Oh, that's a good question. So I'll tell you, I used to review albums for a website, for like a metal zine, and I remember I used to do this where if it was like a great band that put out a bad album, I would give it a 6 or something.
Okay.
Or like a disappointing album, right? And if it was like some fucking terrible, like nothing, no name in the middle of nowhere band and put out just something that like started and ended, I would also give it a 6 or something, right? But in reality, the like good band with a mediocre record is more like a 6 or a 7, and the band with nothing is really like a 2. Like I don't want to. I've never gone back and listened to 2.
Right. You're saying if a great album put out a disappointing album, you'd judge it worse than if it was just some average band and they, made a good album.
Yeah, well, I noticed myself doing this, and I remember thinking, like, is this fair? Is this really true? Because it's like, if like some of the albums I've reviewed where I was like, oh, this sucks, I'll give it a 5 or whatever. And maybe this just means I'm a bad album reviewer. Like, because in reality, it's like a lot of these albums, I was like, this is a fucking 0. Like, this sucks. I don't want to listen to this shit anymore. You know, like some albums, I was like, oh, I can't believe I agreed to review this. This is so boring. And I was like, I would basically give them an A for effort, or not really an A, like a D for effort.
Right. No, I think that's absolutely fair. I think it's absolutely fair to judge.
Whereas, like, you listen to the Load album by Metallica or something. I don't know.
I like Load.
I like some songs on Load too. I love Ain't My Bitch. Anyway, whatever. You might listen to something and go, this is like such a disappointment. Or, sorry, you might go, this is just okay, but I expect so much more of this established, mature band with a fucking infrastructure around them. And so you give it the same type of score in your head. Anyway, though, so yeah, for this, I think it was, in that 7 range.
Okay.
For me, whereas like Crimson King is like a fucking 11 out of 10.
Okay.
And I think the first record for me was probably around an 8, maybe 8.5. Because actually, there's a lot of stuff on the first record that I felt was, I wouldn't call it filler, just didn't really like grab me in the same way that Crimson King did.
I think that people do tend to underestimate the degree to which Heaven Denies, Blood on My Hands, and Fiddler on the Green absolutely carry that album.
Mm-hmm.
I think those songs are like all-time classics of the entire history of music. I think it's a very tiered album. I think there's songs on that level. Then there's Gallows Pole, like blanking, and those are really good. And then there's songs that are more forgettable on that album, like Path of Glory and Not Two and Two.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you give it 7 out of 7 out of 10.
Yeah, something in
What's
that range would be.
what were your
my
favorite
favorite song.
songs on it?
I think Diabolic was probably my favorite.
Okay.
After that, like I said, I thought the chorus to Invincible was really catchy and great, and that was one I found myself kind of singing to myself throughout the day. So I'll throw that up there.
Yeah.
And then there was a few that I thought were great, but again didn't just grab me in the same way. So I think Children of Cain, maybe Timeless Spirit and Universal Truth were kind of up there.
I can definitely see that about Universal Truth.
Yeah.
Like for me personally, Timeless Spirit and Children of Cain are like two of the best songs on that album. Well, I think that Children of Cain is like the best song in that album. I think that's the only song that's like perfect 10 out of 10. Yeah, I can definitely agree that this is tiered like the first album. It's tiered into great songs, good songs, and kind of filler. But I do tend to think that the filler is much better on this album than it is on the debut album. I feel like this song had the filler was much stronger, and on the debut album, I feel like the best songs were stronger. Which is why I put this one maybe just a little bit under the debut. Like if the debut is like a 9 out of 10 for me, this is maybe like an 8 or an 8.5, somewhere in that range.
Well, I'm glad that you feel this way, because it's making me want to not dismiss it. I certainly wouldn't dismiss it because it's from one of my favorite bands, but it's making me want to. I aspire to when I hear other people, consciously is not the right word, but like really, really, show how good something or how like fucking like how meaningful something is to them. It makes me want to look at it a different way, and so this is nice. I have a question for you though.
Sure.
What do you think of the title of the album?
I mean, a lot of other bands are doing it. Like Havoc just released their album, which they're calling 5.
They did? I thought they had called something else. I'm gonna Google this.
Or maybe it's V. I read it as 5. Maybe they're doing like that One Iced Earth album that they did with the song called V, about V for Vendetta. Maybe they're doing like a V for Vendetta thing. I read it as 5 because it's their 5th album.
Yeah.
It harkens back to Led Zeppelin and kind of like the classic rock bands.
I didn't even think of that. I wonder if that's why they did this. Demons and Wizards calling it 3.
They did name the band after a Uriah Heep album,
right.
So I don't think it's beyond them. I don't care for it, but album names are just album names. I don't put too much stock in that. Whatever, it is what it is.
Okay, so I hate this. I hate when bands do this. I love the experience of an album. Like I still buy CDs, so I love great artwork. I love the way it physically feels.
Sure.
When a band puts so in 2014 or whatever it was, when Arch Enemy put out War Eternal, this is a very weird nerdy thing that I can tell you, but like the album booklet was like a physically different material. It was like rough. It had this different feel to it, and I love things like that. So when a band calls an album like a number, or even sometimes when they name it after themselves, I'm like, it just feels like a missed opportunity, because it's like that could have been a different. Like I already know the name of the band.
Sure.
I already know that it's the 3rd album. So, like, give me something more to the identity of it.
Do you have an opinion on bands just naming their album after one of the songs?
That's a good question. I think back in the day, like in the 70s, like a lot of bands would name the album after like the lead single, so that like you'd hear the
Right.
lead single on the radio and like know that it paired up with the album.
'Cause
And
that
so
was
back
before there was
then,
internet.
right, like, and I'm sure this still happens somewhat today. I don't think that, you know, that idea is totally dead. But like the fact that there were so many albums, like this is my pet peeve with a lot of Eagles album titles, where it feels like, is that really the name of the album? Like, does that really describe the identity of the album?
Wait, a
Or is
lot
it
of
just
what albums?
Eagles, the band.
Oh, Eagles. Oh, I thought you said Beatles.
No, although that might be true with Beatles too. I might have to think about that. But yeah, so I kind of am picky about these things for just my own taste. It won't like ruin an album or anything like that. So naming a song after a single, I think it just depends on. I guess so. I've never actually, like, despite me saying this, like, this might be the first time I've ever actually discussed this and really thought about it. So I think it comes down to just like, does the name of the album feel like it really characterizes and describes the identity of the record? So we were just talking about War Eternal. I think that's a great album title and it's a great song. I don't think they needed to change the name of the album to just because it happened to already be a single.
Yeah, I can see that.
Sometimes I think it's interesting when bands call it the same thing but change it slightly in one way or the other.
Right. Like Rain in Blood.
That too, actually. That's a little more so. I was thinking like, trying to think of a better example in this, but like the last Metallica album was called Hardwired to Self-Destruct.
Hardwired, yeah.
And I think the single was just called Hardwired.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Or the other way around. It might have been that the album was called Hardwired and the single. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Shows you how much I pay attention to album names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really have a strong opinion. So okay, what were your least favorite or most disappointing moments on this album?
I honestly think Wolves in Winter and Midas Disease, because because Wolves in Winter, first of all, sounds like a really cool song, and I know how much Hansi, I don't know to what extent Jon Schaffer is, but I mean Hansi's a big fan of Game of Thrones, so I kind of thought, there's going to be some cool thing going on here, and the video for that was really, well done. Yeah. Like that's the other thing actually about this record is the videos have been really good. And Blind Guardian, for example, I think even Iced Earth, like they're not really big video bands. They don't do a lot of videos. Yeah. I don't think they really ever have. Even
there was a mirror video that it was just like studio footage and footage of them fucking around and goofing off.
There's been a few. They did the fucking Mr. Sandman video where they're all dressed.
Oh yeah, that was a great video.
Another Strange to Me is the one that is like the only proper video.
Voice in the Dark.
Voice in the Dark, yeah. Also, I like that video too. But I really liked the videos in this. I like how they're like dressed in suits and wearing different things. Like it's just cool.
Yeah.
I even forgive that Schaefer's wearing eyeliner.
I didn't even notice that.
So I think Midas Disease, like I said, I was disappointed by that because
agree.
Seems kind of just simple and kind of like a rock song. And then
I don't think that.
I just didn't. It didn't have the like. I expected that song to really have some balls to it. It didn't have enough.
Okay.
Fucking, it didn't feel like a wolf.
Right. Which is ironic because that's also like the most riff heavy song. It's like the heaviest song, and it's the only song with Jon Schaffer's trademark staccato picking. At least off the top of my head, it is.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I'm like listening to it on Spotify, like scrolling through every song, like where's the that's an interesting thing you just mentioned though, is that a lot of the songs on this album are slower.
Yeah. Well, it's like I said, this is not a John. This is really a Hansi album, and it's not a Jon Schaffer album, which I was actually observing makes more sense to me that someone who is a guitar player will like Crimson King more, because that is definitely more of a guitar album than this one. This is like a vocals and composition album, and that's where Hansi really shines. So I feel like for people whose primary instrument is guitar, they're going to get a lot more out of Crimson King than this one.
So yeah, like I said, those are the songs those are the two songs that kind of disappointed me the most, I would say.
Okay.
But your point about it being more of a not so much a guitar album, that's an interesting one, because I actually don't look at what I love about the second album, which I keep referencing as my favorite. I don't really think about the guitar riffs. I don't think they're bad. I don't think there's anything wrong with it from a guitar standpoint. But what I find myself, singing in the car, sort of like thinking about or like singing along to in the car, is the vocals largely.
Interesting.
And certainly the way they play off back and forth. Like I even love the acoustic stuff on, especially Seize the Day. I mean, that song is, I think, so great because the acoustic makes you feel like it's just like a guy like sitting on the edge of like a battlefield after the battle or something like that. And it has this kind of raw warrior, sort of lamenting quality to it.
Sure.
As a vocalist, though, I assume you like all this shit.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's obviously what I'm drawn to here. I think that, I think you're going to very strongly disagree with this, but I think that the reason I, wasn't as into Crimson King is just because all the times I listened to it, I just found that the vocal parts were just kind of going in one ear and out the other.
I do strongly disagree with that.
Maybe I just need to listen to it more. I feel like that came out at a weird time for both bands. Blind Guardian had just put out a Twist in the Myth, where they were kind of like experimenting a lot and kind of deviating from their traditional sound, and I don't.
It's a different album. Yeah.
I love that album, but I also think that they were clearly a little in over their heads at it in terms of exactly what they wanted out of it, and I don't think that all the experimentation worked. I think a lot of it did. And then Iced Earth had just put out I think Glorious Burden. Obviously, which is their first album without Barlow. But yeah, to me that album just doesn't. It doesn't represent either Jon Schaffer or Hansi at their most inspired. Obviously, you feel very different, but I don't know. So maybe I just need to spend more time with it, and I probably will after this.
Well, I'll just say this. This is the last thing I'll say about this.
Okay.
About this first versus second album thing. Is that I can see how the second album has a little less depth, or is a little more, as you said before, like streamlined. It is more of almost like just a straight up like heavy metal record. I guess. It doesn't have like the, like all the like it doesn't have the it doesn't have anything like Fiddler on the Green, and it doesn't have anything like Tear Down the Wall and Gallows Pole and I'm forgetting the other one, but it doesn't have anything that has that kind of like, I don't know how to put this atmosphere and this like depth and complexity.
Yeah.
But I still think it has, what it does have is just so beautiful and intense. Sure. And that's my feeling of it. And I love one of my favorite things we'll say about Hansi's vocals on that record is some of them are just fucking crazy. I mean, the same is true with the first record, for sure. Like, Heaven Denies, the harmonies on that are out of this world. But I also like feel that way about like Crimson King, for example. I would try to sing it now, but like the way it just the melodies are just so good, but also like intense and impressive.
Yeah.
Well,
I officially resolved to listen to that album more
Yeah.
Because yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts?
If we were gonna do a Demons and Wizards cover, because folks listening, for those of you who don't know, this is a band. We're a band.
Yes.
Called ANUBIS.
I would say I feel like Blood on My Hands would be a great one, or maybe Gallows Pole.
Give me a second.
That one's a little more obscure and kind of. I would say Blood on My Hands would be the obvious one.
I think Blood on My Hands is a good one because a lot of people really like that one, but it's also not like the first one that people think of.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some of the songs. Yeah, I might agree with that actually. That would probably be good. I don't think I'm not gonna suggest any other ones. Okay, I guess if I had a gun to my head, maybe Terror Train.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the one single off that album.
Well, and I'm also just trying to think of what fits like ANUBIS, the ANUBIS.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe Winter of Souls. I know it's might be a weird one.
Which one's that?
Haunted by the lust of my father.
Oh, yeah. To me, that one's a little more on the fillery side.
I like that chorus. I think it's catchy.
It's catchy. So any final thoughts on 3?
I'm just glad they're doing it still, because it was something that I would check in every now and then on Wikipedia or whatever to see what's going on with that, and it was almost like I had a sadness about it, where I was like, I really hope they don't, because those like we've said 1,000 times, those first 2 records are so good that I was like, I really hope that this isn't something that just like, like a TV show that doesn't get its final season or something like that. Like, you just really hope that you get to see this continue. And I'm just glad that they not only made another album, but like I think they're doing like really well. Like their tour, I think, went, as far as I know, really well, like financially. And they're live. They were amazing. I mean, I saw them. They're the only band I've ever seen twice on the same tour and internationally on the same tour. And in Europe, I mean, I've told you this, but for people listening, in Europe, they toured with like a keyboard player and like a backup choir. Not a full choir. It was like a handful of extra singers. And it was just like this great combination of, like I said before, beauty and intensity. I mean, the crowd went crazy, but at the same time, it wasn't like some like thrash metal band. You know what I mean? It wasn't. There was this just different quality to it. But when they played Valhalla, I mean, I had people like jumping on my head and all this shit. I was with these girls that me and my friends had met in Slovenia when we were there, and I just felt this obligation to protect them. And there was just all these people like crashing on us for the cover songs, like when they were doing like Burning Times and Welcome to Dying. I think Welcome to Dying was actually the craziest one, because that's like a speed metal song.
Yeah, of course. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's a great band, so I'm really glad they're active.
My favorite Valhalla story is when I saw Blind Guardian on the Twist in the Myth tour, and like I think Hansi was obviously not having a great day for whatever reason. Like his performance was fine, but he was just obviously not in a fantastic mood. And the crowd is doing what they always do at Blind Guardian shows, where they'd sing the Valhalla chorus after the song was over, and Hansi was just going, and he's going, shut up, stop, and so after about 2 minutes or something, the crowd stops, and he says, in his really thick German accent, he goes, No, because of that, we will now play one fewer song tonight. And the crowd was like, shut the fuck up.
I remember, so you were there actually because we talked, but we weren't really that friendly yet. But on the At the Edge of Time tour, or whatever that was, Sacred Words and Songs Divine, I think was the
one of the best shows I've ever been to.
Changed my life. Can't lie. And I met so many great friends there. I mean, I don't know if I met you that night, but I remember being in your presence. I remember talking. I don't think you remember this, so I'm going to tell you this. I think after the show was over, I was looking for some of our other friends, and so I walked up to you. Like, I don't know if you and I knew each other yet, but I knew you were in sort of the same circle of people.
Right.
So I walked up to you after the show because I was trying to find some of our other friends, and I go, "Hey man, where's the rest of the gangbang?" And you were like, what? Like, you just looked so confused by what I said that I just said, never, I don't know. And I just walked away like feeling, and I've held that
no recollection of that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But what I was going to say about that show is everyone was chanting Majesty at the end, if you remember. And he was like, yeah, I don't think we have time. Like and I remember I read a review of that tour, and some reviewer in like New York or something said, yeah, and if you chant Majesty, like they'll play it, but you have to chant it. So that whole time, the entire concert, every time there was a silence, I just started chanting Majesty, like getting people involved. And I don't remember if it was Hansi or somebody. Eventually, somebody said to me like, "Not yet. This isn't the time. Like, you're too early." And then
they end up playing it?
Time. No, if you remember, they didn't play at that tour. Or at least not in LA. I think it was just that the venue was like, "You got to wrap this up."
Oh, that's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Fuck that place.
Yeah. Well, and then I saw them. So, and I'm sure you were there for this too. So on the next tour, which was the one for Beyond the Red Mirror, everyone starts chanting Majesty like 3 songs in, and they won't shut up. So he just like shrugs and goes, we can play it if you want it. This isn't what we were gonna do. And we were all like, yeah. And he's like, all right, fuck it, fine, all right. And then they played Majesty like song 3 or 4 or something.
No, well, I was living in Pittsburgh or West Virginia at that time. I did catch them on that tour in West Virginia. Or, no, they played in Pittsburgh, but I wasn't at the LA show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that happened at that. That's how they played on that tour.
All right, well, I'm trying to think if I have any final thoughts on 3. I think I've said everything I need to say. I was surprisingly happy with it. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. Simply because I haven't really... It's been a couple albums since the last Iced Earth album I was really into. So I was just still, a little on the skeptical side.
Yeah.
I feel like they peaked in the, around the 2000s decade.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that they're still relevant.
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm not sure they're like the what's popular, in the sense of what's like trendy or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, I think Iced Earth still means so much to so many people. I don't think they've lost the meaning, the significance.
Yeah, I feel like they need to be more acknowledged as they need to be what people think of when they think of classic metal at this point. I feel like they have earned the reputation of being, the next Metallica, and I feel like they deserve that recognition.
Yeah, I don't know about Metallica, but definitely like...
Maybe not Metallica, since they never broke into the mainstream, but...
Yeah, but I think in the same way that you think of like a Pantera or...
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. I don't know.
Not even Pantera. Maybe more like even like Motorhead or there's some band that has always been on the fringes, and never had any sort of mainstream success, but is, just considered an untouchable. Like I consider them legendary and untouchable, and I feel like there needs to be more acknowledgement of that.
Yeah, I guess all I was saying with Pantera was like, I consider Iced Earth part of the pantheon of sort of like metal. God bands.
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of the mainstream, and maybe Pantera's not a good example of that either, or a good point of comparison. But up there with like, Slayer and your Testament, whatever.
I totally, completely agree.
And then Blind Guardian's just on another level. They can every suck their dick.
Yeah, every people who love them really, really love them.
I think that's the career a band should aspire to.
Yeah,
is just however many fans they have. I think every person who is a Blind Guardian fan is like a diehard Blind Guardian fan, and I would love to know what the formula is for that. But they definitely have done something unique in that regard.
I mean, I think it's a combination of just like no one was really doing. Well, I really think a lot of it comes down to just the simple fact that no one has really done intelligent metal in the precise way that Blind Guardian has. Like, there's obviously really intelligent metal. Like obviously there's millions of bands that do metal intelligently, but like they just have this way of avoiding being formulaic while still being super catchy and super memorable.
I agree with that.
Just every song of theirs is just so full of content and yet it makes sense in a way that a lot of like just riff after riff bands, I don't want to say don't make sense, but don't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, their stuff is catchy while not being like too like stupidly simple.
Right. It's not even really about stupidly simple. It's like, their song structures are so adventurous and so,
that's a good word for it.
They're so I don't need another word. Yeah, that's a good word. They so don't follow the verse chorus formula, or I guess sometimes they do, but their stuff is complicated but very, very tasteful, and simultaneously no one was doing the fantasy metal thing quite the way they were doing it when they were doing it. Like, they never resort to cliches. They never resort to like generic, like kind of Hammerfall kind of lyrics.
Yeah.
They're a band that takes their audience really seriously, I guess.
And takes the music seriously. I mean, I think that. Yeah. Yeah, I've thought a lot about this. Like, what makes them so special? I think you've nailed it. Largely.
And then there's what I was talking about earlier, which is that, Hansi is just a wizard when it comes to just writing evocative lyrics and just evocative vocal melodies.
And nobody sounds like him either. He's not.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of people that rip him off, but
but like from that era.
Oh no, from that era, definitely.
None of the other power metal bands are anything.
No, absolutely
them.
not. I mean, like Jens Karlsson from Persuader sounds a lot like him.
For sure. He sounds a lot like him.
Yeah.
And good for him. I have nothing. I love Persuader.
No. But
and Savage Circus.
Well, yeah, it's the same guy.
Yeah.
But
I love what that guy does.
But yeah, no, he's a great vocalist. But he he just doesn't have that X factor. It's, as much as I do love Persuader, he just he doesn't have that magic that Hansi has, even though he might be technically a slightly better singer.
Yeah, I agree. Well, he has a lot of that Jarl, like American.
Oh, he's not American.
No, but I'm saying that kind of style. That kind of Phil Anselmo, whatever kind of.
A little bit of
kind of bluesy, gritty thing.
Yeah. He also does a lot more of the screaming and a little bit more of the growling. It's a very versatile vocalist. Like that's kind of why I hate when people just dismiss him as like a Hansi ripoff. I feel like you're just, to some extent, you're just born with the voice you're born with, and if you can train yourself to sound exactly like Hansi Kursch, then may as well do that. But I also, he just has so much to offer. Persuader is so deep on their own. Well, cool. That it?
I think we've given people plenty to chew on.
For sure.
So for folks listening, go ahead and check out ANUBIS on, at this point, by the time you hear this, it's probably Spotify and YouTube, and buy the shit on Bandcamp and whatever. Yeah. And if you're, FFA or FFO, whatever, for fans of the stuff that we've been talking about today, Demons and Wizards and Blind Guardian, and even a little bit of death metal. I inject a little bit of death metal into the ANUBIS. Check that shit out. And otherwise, thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, indeed.
Go check out 3. Go check out all the bands we mentioned.
And go check out Touched by the Crimson King as well.
If
you haven't.
First thing everyone should check out.
All right, peace out.
All right, I've been John. He's been Devin. Stay awesome, y'all. Stay safe.